Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create the tube that this cable goes into. We've created the cable with the length and the radius and diameter parameters, and we've applied a material parameter to this. So now we're going to create the tube that goes here. So I need a reference plane that's going to help me control the length of that tube. So I'm going to go to Create and Reference Plane. And I'm going to draw a reference plane right here that's going to help me set the length of that tube. I'm going to click on this to name it, and I'll name it Tube and hit enter. When you're creating reference planes for parameters and constraints, it's best to get into a good practice of naming them, especially when you have complicated families. This one's not too complicated, but I'm going to go ahead and give that a name. It's going to allow me to set that as a working plane too, which will be nice. So I'm going to go to my right elevation, and I'm going to go to Create, and I'm going to set that reference plane that I just made as the current working plane by going to Set, Name, and picking that reference plane. So now it's going to draw on that reference plane. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go to Extrusion again, and I'm going to create a circle that's going to control the size of that tube. So I'm just going to left click right over here, and I'm going to go to Modify to stop the circle command, pick the circle, and just like I did for the cable, make this dimension, this radius dimension, permanent. Once I do that, I'm going to left click off of it, select the dimension, and create a new parameter for that. And I'm going to call this the tube OD for outside diameter, and click OK. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to adjust that OD with a formula. So I'm going to come into my family types, and you'll see that that tube OD is right there. And I'm just going to make this tube OD, which is actually the radius. We're going to make it the diameter of the cable, which the parameter is called diameter, divided by 2, which will give us the radius. And then we're going to just add, let's say, 3 millimeters to that. Okay. And then if I click OK, that will adjust itself 3 millimeters from the size of that cable at all times. So I'm just going to hit check there. Now I'm going to go to my reference level, and you'll see that that tube is there. And so what I want to do is take the shape handle from this extrusion and drag it over here. And I can do that, or if you prefer, you can always use the align command up here. If I pick align, I can align with this reference plane the end of that tube and lock it. So now that is controlled, or that's restricted to that plane, and this guy, because it was created on this plane, this end is hosted to this plane. Now I want to put a dimension in here that controls the length of that tube. So I'm going to go to Create, or actually I'm going to go to Annotate, and I'm going to create a line dimension. I could try to pick this and see if it will give me a listening dimension that's singular, but it's not. So I'm going to go and create my own by going to Annotate, Aligned, and I'm going to pick that reference plane, then my tube reference plane, and then left click on nothing. Go to Modify to stop the dimension command, select the dimension, and add the parameter and call it tube length. And click OK. So now if I go to my Family Types dialog box, you'll see that I have tube length 620, and I can set that for the 50 millimeter type name to, let's say, 1200, and hit apply. Okay, and so now it's changed that tube length to 1200. If I go back to my 25 millimeter type that I created in the last one, hit apply, it snaps that tube length back to the original size. I can set this one to 1000. So for every parameter, you can have it set differently in the types. I'm just going to hit apply, click OK, and then I'm going to select that tube, and I'm going to put a material parameter on it that's the same as the cable one. So I'm going to left click on this associate family parameter, and I'm just going to use the cable material. Click OK. And so for the next video, we'll talk about how, if we wanted to have an actual tube that had a hole in it, how we could create that.